goal would be that you would see the majesty and the splendor of Jesus, that he could take a farmer, which was my life, from the middle of nowhere with no ministry experience. Guys, I grew up on a farm, isolated in Australia, never had a youth group, didn't have a youth pastor. I didn't know another Christian in my whole entire high school. I'm the least likely person that God would ever choose to put his hand on. It makes absolutely no sense that God would choose me and use me. And many of you find yourself in that situation where you're like, well, God couldn't use me, could he? Could God pick me? Could God choose me? Could God touch me here in my living room on the other side of the world? Could God really put his hand on me? Oh, you better believe if God puts his hand on you, nothing will ever be the same again. God's reach is far greater than BSSM Online. God is able to find you and meet you in your bedrooms, in your cars, in your secret place, on the platforms of the earth. It doesn't matter where you stand. God's hand is able to reach you and touch you and put his glory on you. The crazy thing is when God begins to move on you and puts his glory on you and his presence on you, the temptation is to water it down and to make it small because you don't want it to become about you. I want you to stop and think about for a moment. Wave at me if you believe that revival is available today and it's something that you want to see in and through your lifetime. Wave at me if revival is what you're longing for and what you're wanting to see and what you're believing God for. Yeah, all of those hands are waving at me. Every single hand on the screen and in the room, people are waving at me all over the place. I want you to think about for a moment, what is revival? We can go into that. I'm not going to dive into that theology right now. But at the very least, it's a very big God being on display. It's the bigness, it's the magnitude, it's the magnificence. It's the size of a big God being released into the planet. And I need you to stop and think for a moment. Can a big God be displayed through little people? Of course he can. I understand the tension. He rides in on the donkey. I understand it. Like Randy says, here's a coin in my pocket, spend me. Yes, but for God to manifest himself greatly upon the earth, he's going to take people that thought they were small and make them big so that a big God can be on display throughout the earth. It takes humility. Wow. It takes the greatest humility to go low enough that God could put his hand on you to touch you, to impact your family. He wouldn't use me. He couldn't use me. He'd just do it sovereignly. He doesn't need me to touch my family. Oh, but what if he does? What if God gives you the secret? What if God's power touched you in such a degree that instead of just having a time around the dinner table, God's sovereign power touched you and all of a sudden those unbelieving family members begin to repent because the power of God's on you and you have enough faith to begin to prophesy over them. You begin to stretch your hands out over them and they get to experience God. He can't do that if you're not willing to humble yourself enough to obey. Oh, I feel this. Ooh, and I feel the resistance. I feel the resistance from you guys and I get it because I'm navigating it and walking it out myself as we speak. Guys, think about it. I'm not even a manager. I don't know if you understand what that means. I'm not even supposed to be in the room. I'm not even supposed to be in the room. I like snuck in the back, like kind of embarrassed, like, am I even supposed to be in here? To faith coming on me to such a degree that I'm taking over the meeting under the power of God. Like, what is that? You know what that is? I can say this before you. It's not just courage, it's humility. And it can appear like arrogance. It can appear arrogant, but only I know the posture of my own heart. It was the ultimate act of humility to go low. I'm telling you, God's going to choose some of you. God's going to mark some of you. I have faith that there's going to be commissioning angels that begin to get released. God's got prophetic words spoken over many of your lives. And there's one encounter away from you actually taking it seriously and believing what it is that God's spoken over you to come to pass through you. So I'm asking for that. If that's you and you're hungry for that, just lift your hands up. Just say, God, today, would you do that in me? God, would you choose me? Would you pick me? Would you put your hand upon me? That's it. I bless the hunger in your hearts. I bless the faith that's even stirring up in some of your hearts right now, that God's going to meet you with himself. Thank you, great King.